Hey everybody, Jason Lieser, Joe Schad here from the Palm Beach Post. Joe, we're sitting here after another Dolphins win. It's such a strange
bound. All right,
feeling.
let's slow down. Maybe
I mean,
3 in a row though.
Playoff thinking.
3 teams that are pretty good.
Playoff maybe.
3 wins in a row. They've been really good at home. If you're a Miami Dolphins season ticket holder, you have to be happy.
Yeah, 4-4 and some winnable games coming up, perhaps. So today against the Jets, 27-23 Dolphins. They even out at 4-4 after a 1-4 start. Very impressive recovery for them. Jay Ajayi over 100 yards. Defense picks off Ryan Fitzpatrick twice. Jordan Phillips, one of them, the defensive tackle. Beautiful little hurdle there. Joe, a lot of interesting stuff in this game. Some crazy plays. What was your favorite part of the game?
Well, Kenyon Drake jumps out to me. There's been a lot of talk about Kenyon Drake not getting heavily involved in his rookie season. He's a 3rd-round draft choice. With Arian Foster's retirement now, an opportunity for Kenyon Drake to get involved in the 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. I told Kenyon I was there. The last time he returned a kick for a touchdown, it was in last year's national championship game for Alabama. A lot of talk about Drake needing to become a professional. He told me candidly this week he needs to make sure that he shows up on time. His teammates have basically said, look, he needs to grow up quickly because he has so much explosiveness, talent, and skill that we need him to bring everything, including all his focus. And that was the biggest play of the game.
Yeah.
Kenyon Drake, who had committed a penalty on what would have been a Jakeem Grant punt return for a touchdown earlier in the game, blocking the back on Kenyon Drake, and Kenyon Drake makes up for it. Some great blocking.
Yeah.
Everybody picked up their blocks on that play.
Did you happen to talk to Jakeem Grant today?
Not Jakeem.
I caught Jakeem in the locker room, and you mentioned this 57-yard punt return that Jakeem had. Would have been a touchdown, and it gets called back for a block in the back on Drake. Jakeem Grant, obviously, in the middle of the play, has no idea that that's happened. He's running downfield. He thinks he's had another one of these just amazing moments of his career, and then he looks back and sees there's a flag, and he finds out it's from Drake, and he said, I told Drake immediately, you owe me one for that. And he said he paid me back. He had the return at the end that basically won the game for him. So we're going to get into that. The special teams, just wild game, special teams wise, some fiascos and some great plays as well, and everything else with Ryan Tannehill and everybody. But we would love it to get you guys questions for sure. Just send them in live in the comments on this. And if you send us some good comments, we'll read those too. Especially if you guys have comments on that Ndamukong Suh blazer that's making the rounds on the internet. We showed it to you before the game. You've probably seen it a little more now on Twitter from post-game. But Joe, let's get right into it. We wanted to know offensively. I think you and I were both very curious about this. The Dolphins have established themselves as a running team. They're going against a very, very good run defense, #1 in the league, a very weak pass defense, last in the league, and they kind of did a little bit of both, I guess, right?
They decided to run the football, even though there were losses. After the game, center Mike Pouncey said he was not pleased with the way Miami ran the football. He was very surprised to learn that Jay Ajayi got 100 yards. Now, he got 100 yards for 2 reasons. Jay Ajayi's determination and the fact that head coach Adam Gase stuck to his word. He said the Dolphins have a new identity, a new brand. It is physical play, it is toughness, it is run the football, it is Jay Ajayi. And for the 3rd week in a row, 3rd game in a row, Ajayi goes over 100 yards. The Dolphins win. It's no mistake.
And coupled with that, Joe, Sean Bartley writes in, kind of along these lines, just as far as Tannehill is concerned. What do you think about Tannehill managing the game? Tannehill gets sacked 1 time, no interceptions, no turnovers. He is 17 for 28, 149 yards, and a touchdown, 86.8 rating overall. That works.
He had 1 throw that should have been a pick 6 late in the game, returned the other way. The Dolphins would have been trailing in the game. He's lucky. There's been a couple of times this year that Tannehill, despite turning the ball over too many times this year, has been also caught a little break.
There's some unluckiness too, though, when you have guys like Kenny Stills dropping that ball.
Yeah, and the ball's getting batted at the line. Yeah. But it would be a completely different storyline if that pass is intercepted, and I think it was dropped. But either way, Tannehill catches a break. But he had a couple of nice throws. Once again, we saw Tannehill at his best, rolling out of the pocket, play action, throwing on the run, was money. Threw a touchdown to the 4th string tight end, Dom Jones, in the front near right pylon of the end zone. Jarvis Landry didn't have a huge day. Took off a dude's helmet, which was one of the coolest plays
it was pretty gnarly.
I've seen. It was Marcus Gilchrist. I mean, the guy's 5'11", 200 pounds maybe, and he takes off the helmet of a defensive back.
Yeah.
That tells you all you need to know about Jarvis Landry.
He's so nasty, man.
I didn't see him in the
not.
locker room. I wanted to ask him about the play. I'm going to be curious to see if Landry addressed the media because I missed him.
He's one of those guys, like if you ever play pickup basketball, there's just harassing defenders that take it way too seriously. That's, I feel like, what he's like to deal with on the football
There's
field.
no reason.
Not that you never take it too seriously on this, but I mean, he's just nonstop. He's relentless.
No mistake that Jarvis Landry is clearly Adam Gase's favorite player. Flat out, on the team, favorite player, Adam Gase, no doubt.
You know, it's interesting when you look at Ryan Tannehill's stats. He had 17 completions. It looks like about 10 or 11 different receivers that he targeted.
And a bunch of running backs.
Yeah, you were thinking about
Williams.
that coming into the game. He had Drake out of the
Jay
backfield,
Ajayi.
Williams out of the backfield. When we're talking about running backs, this would have been very, very difficult to predict with Jay Ajayi. Not just the 200-yard games. I'm not talking about that because that's obviously unpredictable. But if you had gone back a couple months ago and you had seen when they were doing basically running back by committee, to think that you'd have a game like today where Jay Ajayi just handles the load from start to finish and wears down a defense and at the end is running through a defense, a quality run defense.
The dude gets stronger.
This is something that we didn't think they had.
He gets stronger as the game goes on, and the New York Jets have tons of defensive linemen, and Mo Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson were very rested because coach's decision, they were held out in the first quarter, not due to injury. So the Jets had waves of big, strong, physical defensive linemen. Didn't matter. Mike Pouncey returning to the Dolphins lineup has been critical. Brandon Albert being in the Dolphins lineup has been critical. The fact that the Dolphins have all 5 offensive linemen, if those guys can stay together, I think that there's some statistic about when Jawan James, Brandon Albert, and Mike Pouncey are all on the field at the end of a game, the Dolphins are something like 10-1.
Well, they're all pretty good.
It's an incredible statistic.
Yeah.
An amazing statistic.
Yeah.
Can we get some questions?
I was trying to find some and then I bumped the camera. Sorry.
That's all right. Someone asked. Let's see. Someone asking about the Chargers.
Well,
what else?
well, let's talk about not specifically the Chargers, Joe, but just moving forward. I wanted to ask you this on the Jay Ajayi conversation. What do you think it means for the Dolphins going forward that they have now a go-to running back? Not that he's going to get 200 yards every week, but that you've got one guy, you can work him. He's a workhorse.
If he can stay healthy, knock on this table. I mean,
That's
knock
true.
with
It's a tough running style
The
to
reason
stay
Jay
healthy.
Ajayi dropped to the 5th round in the NFL draft is because they were concerned about the durability of his knee and his overall durability. I know he's talked about cryogenics. Is that the deep freeze stuff? Is that where they dropped?
I'm not a scientist. So
They dropped the temperature. It's kind of like the Dolphins media room or Dolphins press box. They dropped the temperature to about 20 degrees to help recovery. So, you know, the Dolphins spend a lot of money. The owner, Stephen Ross, spends a lot of money on rest and recovery and science and development. So if anybody's going to keep Jay Ajayi healthy, it's going to be Stephen Ross and his highly paid sports science specialist.
Yes. Joe, my favorite part of the game, and a lot of people's favorite part of the game, I assume. Let us know what you guys thought of this. Jordan Phillips at the interception. And then, I mean, how much does Jordan Phillips weigh? 330 pounds? He's like 6'8", 330 pounds, something in that area. He picks it off, and he just almost, and I mean this in absolutely a complimentary way, like a ballerina, just floated right over a guy and would have just coasted right into the end zone if someone hadn't chased him down from behind. That was an amazing play.
Well, it's about time Jordan Phillips did something because he knows he's in jeopardy of losing his job to veteran Earl Mitchell, who's going to return from injured reserve. They let you bring one player back. It's going to be Earl Mitchell. Dolphins have already decided. So more depth for the Dolphins defensive line. And quite frankly, one thing that could get lost in the adulation and glory and happiness of this 3-game winning streak and the J train and everything is that today the Dolphins, once again, were not very good in run defense. There were stretches of the game where the New York Jets averaged 8 yards a carry. I'm not sure what they finished with.
6.7 yards per carry.
So they were better late in the game.
Forte almost 8 yards per carry.
Yeah, I mean earlier in the game it was like 10 yards per carry. Jelani Jenkins told me after the game that he was cleared to return from an apparent concussion, but it appears he has a broken left hand. You can play with a broken left hand, but I mean almost every body part on Jelani Jenkins is broken in some part
Very
of the
rough year for him.
So I mean Neville Hewitt and Spencer Singer have been okay while in there. You know, Kiko Alonso was all over the field once again. Didn't notice Bakari Rambo. Didn't notice.
Well, that's good though, right?
That is good that we didn't notice him. Didn't notice Darrelle Revis.
No, I don't know. Well, you didn't notice a lot as far as that goes because the Dolphins didn't throw that. And when they did throw, they weren't really doing anything. They weren't taking any chances. It was all little stuff.
Dolphins showed respect to Darrelle Revis. Conversely, What about Byron Maxwell?
Yes,
I know you had a
let's
chance.
get into this.
So I thought it was so much fun, guys, to let us know on the screen there, if you can type in what you thought about Byron Maxwell and Brandon Marshall cockfighting. I mean, they were slapping hands, grabbing arms, jawing each other. After the game, Byron Maxwell, only thing he told me, I know you spoke to him extensively, he told me that he thought Brandon Marshall was disrespectful.
Yeah.
Didn't get the details. Don't know if he talked about his mom, his kids. I mean, they get dirty sometimes with the trash talk. What did you learn about Byron Maxwell?
Well, Byron Maxwell doesn't talk a lot. As you know, he's a very quiet, just personality-wise, that's who he is. And Brandon Marshall is the opposite.
One guy said liked him not backing down. I like that too.
I would say that he didn't back down. I mean, imagine what that first snap would have been like. I asked Byron Maxwell what was it like walking out there when you lined up against each other for the first time after you read what Brandon Marshall said all week. And he said it was more of the same. And Brandon Marshall kept telling him what he was going to do to him and stuff like that.
Poking him in the face.
He kept running his mouth too. Yeah,
it's like my 4-year-old daughter.
It's very annoying right now that you're doing that.
I'm trying to simulate Byron Maxwell and Brandon Marshall. That's what it was like. So it was great fun. It was great to watch.
It was
like a reality show.
It was.
It's like the Kardashians.
And I would say Byron Maxwell got the best of it. Brandon Marshall was targeted 9 times. He comes down with 6 catches.
Someone said Byron held his own. I agree.
He did. Brandon Marshall targeted 9 times, 6 catches, 45 yards, never reaches the end zone. As far as the back and forth, it wasn't really a back and forth according to Byron Maxwell. I haven't read what Brandon Marshall said. We don't usually get over to the opposing locker room.
You did address it in a news
I'm sure he said something, but Byron Maxwell said it was a one-way conversation. It was mostly just Marshall jawing at him.
Now, there were 2 plays where it was almost comical that Byron Maxwell, with both of his hands, literally grabbed Jason Lieser's arm. No, grabbed Brandon Marshall's arm. So I would say Brandon Marshall, Byron Maxwell doesn't hold every play. I disagree with you. He just holds a lot. He holds a lot.
Don't a lot of good cornerbacks.
He holds.
This is,
you know how they say the Seattle Seahawks, basically their strategy is to hold on every play. and you know, but
I don't think
Byron Maxwell's play has improved. Byron Maxwell's
absolutely
play. By the way, didn't get to talk to Matt Darr. I know this just randomly jumped into my head. But special teams, it's something that we might both touch on later in the Daily Dolphin blog and on Palm Beach Post
cost
Sports.
him the game with
So
that drop.
yeah, I mean, there's like 5 minutes left in the game. The Dolphins are winning. Matt Darr, who's had an outstanding season. This week I was speaking to Matt Darr about, do you think you have a chance to make the Pro Bowl? And he just flat out drops the ball.
Yeah.
Flat out drops the ball. It was a terrible play. You know, we all have moments like that. Someone asking about Deion Jordan. You guys have just won 3 games in a row. We're talking playoffs in the Dolphins locker room. You want to know about Deion Jordan? I did bet Chris Perkins of the Sun Sentinel that Deion Jordan would have a sack for the Dolphins this year.
We generally aren't allowed to say Sun Sentinel on these.
Oh,
no, I'm just messing with you. Matt Darr, Matt Darr. Yes, absolutely. What time was the Matt Darr fumble?
It was like 5 to 6 minutes remaining.
Yeah, I mean, there we go. Yeah,
critical
at the time, and then the Jets go up 23-20. That could have cost him the game. And this is a guy that helped basically win him a game, I think, against Pittsburgh late.
By the way, does Lippett get benched? You guys are doing a great job. This is the most viewers I think we've had during a post-game period. There's a lot of people on here and contributing.
We hit double digits today.
We really appreciate that. Someone asking about Tony Lippett. I thought Tony Lippett was fine.
There
was that one long play down the right sideline where Lippett and McCain jumped for the ball. It seemed like they collided, and then it could have been a touchdown. Thankfully for the Dolphins, the receiver Anderson was ruled to be down.
Yeah.
You know, the Jets certainly wasted some opportunities where if and that interception by Ryan Fitzpatrick to Bobby McCain in the back of the end zone, you know, but I mean, look, this is how most NFL games go. You know, it's a few plays here or there. It's Kenyon Drake's return. It's Ryan Fitzpatrick's faux pas. If the Dolphins lose, we're talking about maybe Ryan Tannehill throwing a pick 6 the other way. We're talking about Matt Darr. So, I mean, where does this leave the team? I mean, are we convinced that the Miami Dolphins now actually have a chance to win 9 or 10 games?
You know, that's hard to predict because you don't know how these teams are going to be that they're going to face. You don't know what Arizona, for example, is going to be when you get them in December, how good that team. We got a massive dragonfly flying right in here. We have a lot of strange insects here in Florida.
We have
I don't know.
a lot of stuff. But I do not expect
Sorry, what were we talking about? Okay, so instead of predicting wins and things like that and playoff contender or not, like what we can look at is you look at what you know they have. And for the first time, I think, you know that they've got that defensive line. They're getting what they're paying for out of that defensive line. It looks very good.
Didn't notice Mario Williams, but in general.
But the other guys, I mean,
yeah.
Branch they're not paying Branch a ton right now, but somebody is going to this offseason, I think.
Someone asked about Gase changing the culture. How do the Dolphins winning 3 games in a row and entering the break at 4-4, which at 1-3 I brought up as a best case scenario. Okay, I said if you have a chance here with the softening of the schedule to get to 4-4. It's on one of these videos that I know Adam Hirschfield, is that how you say it? That's our boss. He archives these. You can look it up. I talked about 4-4. The question is, I hope you're watching, Adam. The question is, at 4-4 with 3 consecutive wins, how does that make the players react and respond positively to what the coaches and this new staff are trying to get through?
Well, anytime you're winning, you're more receptive to all of those things. All of it sounds better. And it's hard for anybody. It'd be hard for someone like Landry, Parker, Stills, any of those guys to complain right now or to be kind of disenchanted by the way they're running the offense, even though they might like to be more involved in it. I mean, the offense is going so well, you can't really take issue with it.
It's a really good point. I mean, no one went to Devontae Parker after the game and said, Devontae, what's the issue? Is the problem that your hamstring hurts, or is the problem that the offense isn't going to you enough?
Yeah.
No one went to Kenny Stills, who left the game due to illness, and said, did you leave the game due to illness because you weren't getting the ball?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all these negatives that could be brought up get swept underneath the rug when winning happens. Winning certainly cures everything. I said it all along. Making the playoffs wasn't necessary for Adam Gase in his first year.
Right.
And it's great that that is still actually a mathematical possibility. Are the Dolphins second in the AFC East?
They would be second in the AFC East if Buffalo loses tomorrow night. I believe Buffalo is at Seattle. I know they play the Seahawks, but very likely you could wake up Tuesday morning with the Dolphins in second place.
Javier Gonzalez, one of our most loyal watchers, says that Gase is a genius.
Well, he probably means me. When he says he's a genius, he means
the coach. He said the coach is a genius. What do you think?
You're probably reading those out of order.
What do you think has been Adam Gase's best move or moves in the last 4 weeks?
Adam Gase's best moves have been sticking to this run game and getting this established with Ajayi and the offensive line, and finding a way to make Tannehill, a passable game manager. I still think, Joe, that a lot of quarterbacks come in and do this job that Ryan Tannehill's been asked to do. But if Ryan Tannehill isn't a turnover machine like Ryan Fitzpatrick is, then this offense you can get by on this. You can get by rushing and just kind of just passing when necessary.
Chargers and Rams. One of our viewers brings up Chargers and Rams. I mean, do we think the Dolphins will be favored against the Chargers and Rams?
I don't know, man. I don't think if they're underdogs, which most teams are on the road, I don't think they're going to be severe underdogs. And that's kind of what I come away from this feeling, is not necessarily that, okay, this is a playoff team now. It's that the Dolphins shouldn't really be drastically overmatched in any of their games the rest of the year. They may be kind of on even footing or semi-even footing. They may lose some games that they should win, or they may lose a game at Buffalo or something like that. But they look like a team that's going to have a chance against pretty much anybody, and I definitely wasn't thinking that in September.
A couple of notes that I have before we run and actually go right. Cam Wake, 2 sacks, 2 strips.
Yeah.
Played a lot. I'm going to be curious to see how all these extra snaps, if they take a toll. I'm trying not to jinx anything here, but he's been so good. I hope it doesn't take a toll on him down the stretch.
He said a couple days ago that he feels great. Cam Wake was talking about playing beyond this year just a few days ago, and how good he feels, that he just seems like he's back to normal. The coaching staff seems to think he's back to normal based on the way they're playing him, and his production, man. I mean, what evidence do you have that he's not back to normal?
I hope
he
so.
looks like Cam Wake.
And the other guy, Ndamukong Suh, 3rd and 7, 3:46 left, blows up the right guard, buries quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He's done that a couple times this
2
year,
weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Last week, defensive coordinator Vance Joseph moved Ndamukong Suh over to the defensive end position. He had a critical 4th quarter sack. Happened once again. Ndamukong Suh might not have the best choices on the style of his suits. He might not like dealing with the media, but he takes out his anger and his frustration on opposing offensive linemen, and that's why the Dolphins pay him so much money. He's had a good season,
and he's absolutely been worth the money. He's been unbelievable. There is not a comparable defensive tackle in the league to Cameron Wake, to Ndamukong Suh right now. The only real question with the Dolphins ever with him has been, were they in a position where they could manage to spend that much of their salary cap on one guy? It's never been a question of whether Ndamukong Suh can live up to that contract, and he has.
So I am definitely writing about Kenyon Drake's big return. I spoke to Walt Aikens and a couple of other special teamers, Damian Williams, Marquise Gray, about what they saw on that play. So we'll have some in-depth breakdown of why Kenyon Drake was able to return that play. What do you for sure?
Well, we've got Byron Maxwell's thoughts up there right now. If you go to the Daily Dolphin on PalmBeachPost.com, We've got Byron Maxwell's thoughts on the Brandon Marshall matchup right there, and I'm going to get into Jay Ajayi and what he proved. Jay Ajayi, you know, this is something you'll be able to read in a little bit. He was hearing quite a bit of chatter from the Jets defensive front, especially early in the game. And then I asked him what was he hearing at the end of the game, and he said nothing.
This is fun. We're not sure how long it's going to last, but
it's entertaining.
The J train is rolling. The Dolphins playoff hopes are alive, and we like this. More viewers on Facebook Live than ever. That will please our bosses at Cox Media Group and the Palm Beach Post, Adam and Mark Bradley, and our columnist Dave George. We're getting
a lot of shout-outs today.
A lot of shout-outs.
Anybody else you want to say hi to?
Getting a lot of hearts here. I'm telling you, man. Listen, when the Dolphins win, it's good for business.
When the Dolphins win, they like anything we say. It doesn't even matter.
There is huge traffic on Palm Beach Post. Huge traffic on Post. I'm telling you, man, this is good. On Post on Dolphins. You guys are all following that on your Facebook page, and you get the stories right to you, and we appreciate it. And keep reading. Our numbers are always big after Dolphins wins. You watch. Everything we write on Palm Beach Post Sports and the Daily Dolphin blog, you guys are reading, you guys are watching, and we appreciate it. We'll see you in California.
There you go.
All right, thanks.